All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for everybody who's here joining us today. I'm Lisa Partida with Home Again LA, and today we have Tom Fuentes with Bank of Hope, and today's topic is going to be your spending and savings plan. So I'll go ahead and pass it along to Tom.
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, so tonight is your spending and savings plan. This is actually a really fast financial literacy workshop tonight. There's only two sections. In the first section, we're going to go over making a monthly spending and savings plan. So we're going to discuss creating a spending and savings plan, and then we'll talk about ways to increase income and decrease expenses. And the key takeaway from section one, use a monthly spending and savings plan to guide how you're going to use your money. So the first step is understanding the building blocks of a spending and saving plan. So a spending and savings plan helps you compare your income and expenses, understand where your money is going, and make adjustments to guide how your money so that you can meet your goals. Some people may call this a budget. We're going to use the phrasing spending and savings plan. So it's clear we are planning for how we're going to spend money and how we're going to save money. Spending and savings plans bring together two essential topics, income and expenses. Um, Income is money that you receive. This is going to be from earned income from assets or investments, public benefits that you may receive, or other income such as gifts, child support, things like that. And then the other term is expenses, how you use your income. And it could be through savings, sharing, whether you give to a nonprofit or whether you spend the money. Thinking about your income and expenses can be stressful, especially if you're worried about, how you're going to make ends meet. So we're going to talk about a practice putting information about income and expenses into an overall monthly plan. Um, that process can empower you to make the choices or any changes that you might identify along the way. So in the long run, it can help you reduce stress about money because really one of the biggest stressors that we all have in our lives is money, how we're going to pay for stuff, how do we get more money, things like that. Before we started the workshop, we mentioned the participant guide. The participant guide is going to kind of be used as kind of like a homework section. You're going to use the topics learned in the financial literacy work to fill that out as essentially homework. The first bit of homework that we have is going to be in the participant guide, and it's going to show you making my spending and savings plan. So essentially what you're going to do is you're going to use what you've gotten from the financial literacy workshop here. And in the participant guide, it's going to help you in creating your own spending and savings plan. It's going to take time, but I think the activity is going to be well worth it. It's going to provide an opportunity for you to find ways on how you can increase income and decrease your expenses. Um, I don't think we have it listed. We don't have it listed here. But in the spending and savings plan that you're going to see in the participant guide, there's essentially going to be three sections. Those three sections are going to go into my net income, my expenses, and a comparison. And you can see here at the top here, in the blank guide that you're going to have in the participant guide, it's going to be broken down into those three sections. You're then going to go through the steps to fill out those sections. So you're going to complete the column called past monthly amount. And then in number two, complete the column called planned monthly amount for whatever month it is. And then compare your total net income and your total expenses. And then if needed, you're going to make changes to the income and expenses you have in that planned monthly amount column that's going to be used to cover your expenses. You'll understand this a little bit more when we go in more depth into the topics, but essentially what you're going to have is a clean sheet in the participant guide that you're going to be able to fill out in order to build upon that spending and savings plan. So let's go into those sections a little bit more in detail. Remember, my net income, my expenses in comparison. So in these three parts, the first part focuses on your net income. Net income is your income after taxes and other deductions. Using net income means that we won't include taxes as an expense. The second part focuses on your expenses. The third part is a comparison of your total net income and your total expenses to see if they're in alignment with with each other. And what that means by aligned, we mean, does your income cover all of your expenses? And again, there's detailed instructions in the participant guide to go about how to do this. So here's how you're going to fill it out. So first, we're going to complete the past monthly amount column. We already talked about this, but what you're going to do specifically is record your net income and your expenses based on the past months. This will be most accurate if you have records reflecting at least 1 month of income and expenses. And then next, you're going to be completing the planned monthly amount column. It includes a space for you to write which month you're planning, and then fill in income and expenses using the past monthly amount column as a reminder of your recent income and expenses. So don't just copy the amounts, think about whether you need to make any adjustments to either the income or expenses from the last month. So for example, you may want to put your money into an emergency fund. You may be able to cut back spending on groceries and household supplies, for example, to make the change to actually contribute to that emergency fund. And then finally, compare your total net income against your total expenses. It'll help you see if your income covers your expenses. And if not, you'll want to look at ways to make adjustments to either the income or expenses. So you may have to do some math to get the monthly amounts for this spending and savings plan if you receive income or pay expenses on a schedule other than what's presented in that monthly column. So what does we mean? Remember, we talked about alignment. So what does it mean when we're comparing those two items, that income, those expenses? So when you compare your total net income and your total expenses, you will have three possible outcomes. If the difference you calculate in the comparison of my total net income and my total expenses section is 0, your income is the same as your expenses. So you should have just enough income to cover those expenses. If you end up coming up with a positive number, you have more income than expenses. So you should have enough income to cover those expenses. A negative number is something that you may also get after doing this comparison. So you have more expenses than income in a situation like this. You would likely not have enough income to cover your or decrease your expenses or incur debt to make it possible to cover these expenses. So you can create your own spending and savings plan using that apply it section after the workshop. And I hope that going over these topics can better help you create that. One of the other things that we need to talk about before we go on to the next apply it section is those two main kind of ideas, the positive and negative here, meaning that there's really only two ways to increase your income. You can either get it promoted at work, you could leave your job for a higher paying job, or you could do something like monetize a hobby. So for example, like my wife is a talented baker on the side. So on the side of her regular job, she will make cookies, cakes, and other kind of things and sells them for extra income. So you can monetize a hobby. You can also do contract work. You could do like Uber or Uber Eats or something like that as well, which would be categorized as a second job. So those are the ways that you can increase income. The other way that you can increase income is by cutting expenses. So if you cut your expenses down, which is that idea that we gave where if you want to try to come up with an emergency fund, how would you do it? You may need to cut back from groceries and other expenses. So the only other way to increase income is to cut your expenses back. There's really no other way to go about it. I wish that there was, but there truly isn't. But what we have in the participant guide, going back to the making of the spending and savings plan, in the grid, you're essentially going to have things like your job. So in the participant guide, it'll say job 1, job 2, job 3, if it's applicable to you. It'll say self-employment income if you're an entrepreneur or a small business owner. It'll have things like public benefit if you have any of those, any interest earned from savings accounts, any dividends earned from assets that you have in ETFs, mutual funds, and stocks and things like that. Child support's listed as a line item, as well as alimony, gifts, and then there's other. And then the idea is to add all those up to come up with the net income. And then off of that, you can create your savings plan. And then it's also going to have line items for the expenses, things like rent, property taxes, water, electricity, your cell phone bill, internet, cable, things like that. And then you're going to add all those up. You're going to compare the two, and then you'll end up getting your total. Other things are going to be in there too, like credit card payment, car payment, groceries, eating out, pet care, personal expenses, entertainment, so on and so forth. But this will give a better idea because we all kind of have different things going on in our lives. And because it's all unique, you can come up with your own personalized plan using the guide in the participant section here. And then we have a try it section. That was our next thing here. So in the participant guide, we also have this try it section where we have this scenario with Shelly and Walter, and they're making their own spending and savings plan. So after the workshop, check out this scenario, because in going through this scenario, and essentially I'll give you the brief synopsis, and then you can check this out after. Shelly and Walter recently moved to a new city 8 months ago. They both have jobs. Walter does freelance work on the weekends. Their total net income is $3,100 a month. They're trying to save money toward an emergency fund, but their savings account is actually decreasing each month. That's because they're withdrawing money to cover expenses. They also would like to start a college fund for their granddaughter. So they need to figure out a plan that's going to satisfy all of their goals. Now, I don't know if we have the grid in here. Let me see. We have part of the grid, and essentially what we have here is essentially what it was on the previous try section, but it's specifically for Walter and Shelly, and it's going to have their net income and all those items. It's also going to have their expenses. You can go through this to kind of figure out what they can do to cut back or increase income to better suit their goals. In the another way or solution to think about this differently is what we have here in the apply it section, which is using a my spending and savings plan by coming up with a record, which is recording what you're doing. And this is kind of like a daily ideas thing, which we'll go over here in a second, but this is what you're going to encounter in the participant guide. Record your savings, sharing, and spending. Saving your receipts is a good first step in this tracking. You can also use your monthly statements. And then you can come up with ideas. Ideas like collect your change, drop your spare change into a jar. I actually did that today. I had change sitting on my dresser for like the last week. I can't even remember what I used for cash, but I forgot. I have a jar that I put it in. And then ever so often I'll clear out that jar if we want to go out to eat or whatever you use the jar money for. But yeah, so using this kind of recording system is a good way for you to kind of keep track. Let's go over that in some more detail. So again, there's daily and weekly ideas. You can record these on a daily basis. You can do it on a weekly basis. The idea on the daily idea is that you drop the change in the jar. The idea on the weekly basis is doing an envelope type system, putting extra cash in the envelope that you know that you don't need to spend. You can also do it on a monthly basis, conducting a monthly review of what's going on, which is kind of what we've been talking about already, right? So review records of your spending for the past month using an app. Go onto your financial institution's app on your phone and look at your most recent statements. You can do the same for your credit card bill. Compare how your spending and savings plan did or did not reflect on that current month after you review those statements against the plan that you came up with. Having a monthly goal setting session could be something that you want to do too. Have each family or household member write one or more goals for their spending and savings in the coming month. And then be sure to also to review the progress toward the previous month's goal. Celebrate the successes. There's many ways to celebrate. For example, you could declare a family or household member to be money manager of the month based on the person's success in saving money. Um, it helps also to prepare for taxes. At the end of the month, you can identify expenses that may be important for tax time. This could be a good way to start saving invoices, receipts, screenshots, online payments of things that may be applicable for you during tax time. So we kind of already went over the ideas of increasing income. Let's go into it more specifically. So you may be able to increase your income, which will help you cover your expenses or increase the amount of money that you have to save or share. Some activities may provide more income, one or occasionally, such as selling items in a garage sale. I do this frequently. I go through these like phases on a monthly basis where I feel like I need to get rid of a bunch of stuff. So I'll post it on eBay, and those things that don't go on eBay go into a box to be sent to the Goodwill. So I do this actually quite frequently. I feel like I do this like on a quarterly basis. After every 3 months, I go through this like shedding process. Some activities may be long term. You may have to devote some time before the strategy will generate income, such as participating in a local workforce development program, for example. It may help you develop skills to fill high demand jobs and increase your income over the long term. But again, there's several different ways to go about increasing income. Selling items you own, using your talents or hobbies, to monetize a side hustle, getting a second job, getting a seasonal job. We actually talked about this in the last financial literacy workshop, which was the idea that I feel like every holiday season I see that UPS, FedEx, and Amazon are hiring warehouse workers because of the influx demand caused by all the present buying. So you could get a seasonal job. You could do odd jobs. Maybe you have a talent as a handyman. Maybe you could do repairs around other people's houses. Renting a room in your home can be a way to monetize that as well. Um, Filing taxes and getting a tax refund from the state or from the Fed, that's income coming in if you get a refund. Getting on the job training can also help, or going back to school and getting a certificate or degree as well. There's also the other way to increase income is decreasing expenses. You may be able to decrease your expenses, which will free up some of your income. To decrease expenses, you need to think carefully about your needs, wants, and obligations. What does that mean? Needs are things that you must have to live. Wants are things that you desire and can't live without. Obligations are debts that you owe because you borrowed money. Then you think about the three strategies: conserve, adjust, do without. Conserve. What can you get cheaper or use less of? And for the conserve, I always use the example in a lot of the workshops was when I was spending $10 to get Old Spice body wash at Target when I could just as easily get the body wash at the dollar store now for $1.25. That was my way of conserving. You can make adjustments. What can you renegotiate over a long term? Do you have a car that you currently can't afford? Can you sell that car? Things like that. And that's why that monthly spending and savings plan is so important. When you write out these items, you might be able to identify things that you can create adjustments in. What are some things that you can do without or eliminate altogether? We might have things that we're overpaying. How many subscription things are you paying for? Uber Eats, Netflix, things like that. What are some things that you can do that you can identify to take things out? Here's another adjustment that's actually totally relevant right now since we're in the middle of summer and it's so hot outside. Do we make that short-term decision to adjust the thermostat to have it be a little warmer in the house so that we can decrease our utility bill? Are we in that position? Are we doing things like that? I don't know. There's a whole bunch of different ways like we can plug in different things into this three-pronged strategy. I don't know about you, but fill out a list of things that can help you make those adjustments. And then you'll see that right here, how this is relevant in that Walter and Shelley example. If we use the three-pronged strategy and we write it out, we can start to make the necessary adjustments in the spending and savings plan that we created for ourselves. Okay. So I hope that that's helpful. That brings us to the end of section 1, which is essentially the idea, hey, we can create this monthly spending and savings plan. And then when we use that three-pronged strategy, we're able to identify and make adjustments along the way to that plan that we had. Because we always have to go back and renegotiate. Things are going to be different on the daily, things are going to be different on the weekly, on the monthly, and in the annual. So we can adjust and make changes. Now, when money is short, this is going to be our last section. I told you this one's a little fast. But we're going to prioritize which bills to pay first based on what might happen if bills are not paid full and in time. And the key takeaway from this section is prioritizing which bills to pay first when our money is short. So even with careful planning, we can still run into this situation when money is short. So what are some reasons people may not have enough money to pay their bills, even if they rarely use a monthly savings and spending plan? I mean, there's tons of reasons, right? Um, you may have to pay health or medical expenses unexpectedly due to illness or injury. You could lose your job. Your hours could get cut. You have to replace or repair something in your house. You know how much a refrigerator costs? That's a lot of money. A family member might have an emergency and you may need to help them out monetarily. Back to school costs. We're going to be going into that in the next month, right? When the kids go back to school, that's a lot of money. There could be a severe storm that could create damage to your home that you may need to repair. So even if you've planned carefully, you can run into situations where there isn't enough money to pay bills. The list that we just discussed right there is not an exhaustive list. There may be things specifically in your life that are going on as well. But I think it's important to kind of jot these things down so that we have them, right? So we kind of already talked about this. So what can we do when money is short? We already talked about the idea of increasing income and decreasing expenses. But the other thing that we can do too that we haven't talked about is contacting creditors. Um, so contacting creditors about your situation. Look, they lent you money, but they're in the business of getting that money back. They don't want to default on the money that you owe. So they may give you extra time. They might work with you in the end because they want to get their money. They may be able to change your due date for payments. Um, you never know. You got to ask, right? You can reach out for help, not only from family and friends, but also from community-based organizations and public agencies. You found yourself this afternoon with Home Again LA offering free financial literacy workshops on topics like this that can hopefully help you better understand ways to save money, create wealth, build money and spending and savings plans, and so on and so forth. So there's community agencies and organizations out there that have free services for you, um, to help you when money is short. Another thing would be like if you want to buy a home, there's HUD certified counseling agencies out there that have free programs and services for you if you want to become a homeowner. Um, but also prioritization. We need to prioritize what to pay first. So prioritizing based on what might happen. Prioritizing means making choices about which bills you'll pay in full, pay partially, or pay late. You'll still need to pay all of your bills, but the order in which you pay them in can sometimes differ. Examining the consequences of not paying certain bills in full and on time is the first step in prioritizing. So think about what might happen if you don't pay. So pay particular attention to consequences that, one, prevent you from earning income, two, jeopardize your shelter, three, impact your family or your family's health or ability to live independently, and four, could result in an ultimate loss of whatever asset it is. Um, the other thing too is we want to avoid things like, late fees, eviction, strains on relationships. I was listening to a podcast recently and they had a relationship expert on, and that expert stated that the number one cause of divorces in the United States are money troubles. I honestly didn't know that, but I mean, seriously, money is a huge stressor that can happen in our lives. And again, prioritizing my expenses in the participant guide, check this out after the workshop, but you can use this worksheet in the participant guide to kind of use as a guide for when money is short and you have to choose which expenses to pay first. This particular apply it section includes an example. A phone bill for $50 is due January 5th. This person cannot pay it on time and in full that month, so they'll have to call the creditor. In this case, it's a phone company. They found out that the phone company is actually going to work with them in order to help them make that payment. But it's just kind of a thing that we need to kind of do. I don't think we have the listing here, but I'll give you an example. Yeah, I'll give you an example. In this section, essentially what it's going to have is it's going to have a blank sheet. On the left, it's going to have bills and expenses. And in this particular situation, it's a phone bill, but you're going to be able to list all of the expenses that you have. What you're going to do then next is you're going to fill out the amount that you have owed to the debtor on a monthly basis, as well as the due date. And then you're going to be able to add the amount that you have on that monthly basis. And then what you have is that in order to prioritize those based on the due date, as well as whether or not you can pay. And in this section, you're going to be able to prioritize whether or not you have to reach out to whatever debtor that is. And that it has a log in the participant guide if you've spoke to someone about renegotiating those terms of a payment, in case you're unable to make that payment on time. Yeah, so like I said, this was a quick one. That's pretty much the main meat of the workshop. With what we've talked about though, I'm more than happy to help with any questions that might have came up during our conversation. So feel free to unmute yourself if you have any questions, drop something in the chat. But yeah, this is your spending and savings plan.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Lisa.
Not sure if anyone out there has any questions.
I would just say before we go that I really do think that those like blank sheets that we have in the participant guide topically on there are going to kind of help, because one of the things I always bring up in the workshops is that like people learn in different ways. Like some people are visual, some people are auditory, some people learn by writing. I learn by writing and typing. It's just how I am. So when I make lists, when I fill out things like how the participant guide's laid out, it helps me identify things that I may not have even understood that is going on with like my money. So I would suggest like checking that out because I think it could be super helpful.
Got it. Thank you so much, Tom. All right, I guess we'll finish off here. If you guys if any questions come up afterwards, feel free to email me. I'm sure everybody here has my email, but just in case, it's going in the chat. There you go. All right, you guys.
Thank you, Tom, for your time. I appreciate it.
Oh
Thank
yeah,
you.
appreciate you. Thanks for attending tonight.
Cash Money, I think you were contacting me via email, right?
Yes,
Was
it
that you?
was.
Okay, I'll follow
Yes.
up with you shortly. Okay, bye
Okay.
everyone.
All right, see y'all. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.